Hey guys, it's Retro Rose here, and welcome back to Monday. We play cute and cozy games, and we're going to continue our life beginning and always moments, and we're going to do the moments with Derek. If you're new here, again, my name is Retro Rose. I play a variety of games from indie horror, visual novel, cute and cozy, action adventure, or you name it. But we're going to pick up for the DLC. Last time we did Soiree, and it was so cute. We got to dance with Cove, and Cove got to be a little more open about how he feels, and our moms kind of like scared him in regards to treating us well with dating. So we're going to see how all that plays out. But for right now, we're going to continue on to the DLC and go to Responsible. So let's get started. The pool at Derek's condo complex was the perfect setting for a late morning outing. It was early enough that day hadn't yet reached its hottest. The air was still held the crispness of morning, despite its pleasantness. Only you and Derek were there, of course, given the location of the ocean. Maybe everyone else who felt like waterside fun was at the beach usually were. The warm roughness of the tiles felt odd on your bare feet as you walked further into the pool area. There were no sand to squish between your toes or sharp shells to avoid. You surveyed the area while Derek finished putting his stuff away on a chair. The chlorine was sharp on your senses, and the entire space was so orderly. Lounge chairs sat in the neat rows, umbrellas spaced out uniformly. The depth of the pool was marked out in the next text along the sides. Every single element was intentionally and expertly crafted to be convenient for its human visitors. It was extremely different from the wild mistress of the sea. You liked both the pool and the beach about the same. Both had their good points. You were up for today's adventure to be something different from your typical day-to-day options. This had been Derek's plan. He let you know about it ahead of time so you could be dressed for the occasion. You wore a two-piece bathing suit and a shawl to cover up. Your swim gear was familiar even if the pool wasn't. You felt prepared. Derek bounded up to you in his own swim trunks, flagrantly ignoring the no running signs in his enthusiasm. Watch, I'm gonna do a cannonball. As soon as he knew he had your attention, he took off to the deep end of the pool. He built up speed and then leaped into the water. He curled up his body, creating a huge splash on impact. You applaud. You had to appreciate his talent and showmanship. He had practice on how to achieve the maximum splash. Such a show deserves a clap. He stayed under for a while longer. He touched the pool's bottom before kicking himself back upward. When Derek's head popped up out the water, he swam to the edge of the pool and propped himself up with a grin. He watched you expectantly. You sat on the edge and dipped your feet in. You settled yourself next to Derek, grimacing through the sitting on the damp concrete. Slowly, you lowered your toes down in the water. The pool was comfortable, cool after the moment of adjustment. A very nice treat after walking on tile. As you enjoyed the moment, your thoughts fell back to how you'd get there. Last night, Derek had called with a different sort of request. You remembered that his voice had been a mix of nervous and hope. He had a favor to ask, very unexpected for him. Derek's mom needed to watch his little brothers in the afternoon. It wasn't anything out of the ordinary, but this was part of his problem. Lately, he had feared that his sports skills weren't as sharp as they wanted them to be. He hadn't been able to practice soccer or football without the distraction of keeping an eye on his brothers. His idea to fix this had been to ask for your help watching the kids. If you agreed to the park with him and his brothers, then you could manage his brothers while he had a chance to focus on practice. That's how he explained it. You said yes, and your moms had been more than happy to let you spend the day playing support for Derek. They said it would be a good opportunity to take on some more responsibility. To sweeten the deal, Derek suggested that you come by early so that you both could hit the pool. Nicholas would be sleeping in, and George would spend some one-on-one time with Mrs. Suarez. So far, the plan had worked out. Ma dropped you off about 15 minutes ago, and both of Derek's brothers were fully occupied. Mrs. Suarez and George were back in the condo, putting together an 100-piece puzzle on the kitchen counter while Nicholas snoozed on the couch. You had time to kick back before the moment came to be in charge of small children. A sloshing sound pulled you back to the present. Derek had climbed out of the pool. I'm gonna jump again. Wanna join? Yeah, let's go. You sprung to your feet and reversed away from the edge until it seemed like enough room. Poised to go, and you and Derek made eye contact. You leaned forward, balancing on the balls of his feet. I've already done one. It's your turn. You showed him your cannonball. You backed up a little more to give yourself more space before going for it. You kicked your feet up, running to the edge, and leaped. Curled into a ball, falling quickly, the air rushed past you, and then you were sinking towards the bottom of the pool. Whoa. You stretched out and reached up towards the surface, parting your arms and paddling over to dry ground. Derek was laughing boisterously. It was his turn next. By the curve in his grin and lifted his chin, he looked to be in the mood to impress. His eyebrows grew together in a deep furrow as he considered his launch. Derek took a few bounding steps to the edge, jumped up and tucked his body in. Unlike his previous cannonball, the energy went into a spin, and he flipped, making a full rotation before he crashed through the surface. The water droplets from the splash dazzled you as they exploded from his impact. He swam under the water, only came back to the surface after he reached the wall of the pool. He sneaked his hand up to the top of the tiles and pushed himself up so that his hips were even with the edge. He twisted and practically rolled out of the pool from there. You're up. Okay. You backflipped into the pool. You planted your feet solidly on the edge of the pool, not facing the water, and bent your legs and prepared. You swung your arms back until like a pendulum, and you swung them forward. The moment your hands passed your knees, you jumped backwards. You tucked your body in a tight edge. You turned all the way around before you hit the water. Whoa, that was awesome. You kept switching back and forth, trading off between silly jumps and more impressive tricks. From watching Derek's well-practiced dives, forming your own jumps, there was never a boring second. After several leaps, Derek called a break time, and you took a breather at the back stairs of the pool. You waited for your strained heart rate to even out from all the exertion. After a pause of silence, Derek spoke up. He pulled his fist to his cheek in a thought, squishing his face slightly. Hey, I probably should have asked this before, but have you ever babysat someone before? Yes, sometimes I babysit for some of my mom's friends. That's cool. Having you on my team is going to be amazing. When it's 2-on-1 game, it's rough. Even the odds, right? You really felt for him, given your own babysitting hurdles you had this past summer. You were curious to see how the experience would go. Rather than dreading or excitement, the coming afternoon was a mystery in your mind. You simply have to wait for it to arrive. After that interlude, you both continued to enjoy yourselves and your freedom until a little beeping alarm went off. It's time. He made his way to the lounge chair with his stuff and dug out a small portable clock. It buzzed until he found the stop button. Derek checked the time and narrowed his eyes at the glowing red numbers, and he shot you a thumbs up. Let's go up. You helped him gather the towels, grab the rest of the stuff, and then tried to drip as little as possible while rushing through the halls of the complex. When you reached his apartment, he dumped everything in his arms on the ground and scrambled to find his key. Just give me a second. I don't want to knock or anything in case Nicholas is still asleep. He finally spied his soccer ball keychain and snatched it up his keys from where they were tangled in his towel. He inserted the key into the lock, and both of you shuffled inside to where his home. Oh, his spot looks so cute. The three heads swiveled to face the two of you, gazes drawn to the bundles of neon towels coming in. Mrs. Suarez and George, gotta be George, were sitting on the bar stools while Nicholas perched on the counter itself with an excited grin. They were working on a puzzle. On the left, Derek leaned closer and spoke under his breath. He's awake. Oh, she's so cute. Derek is back. Quick as a blink, Nicholas scrambled on his hands and feet and zipped across the black marble counter. Tiny cardboard puzzle pieces scattered. Nicholas, the puzzle. Despite George's frustration, the little whirlwind didn't seem to hear. He was on a mission to reach his big brother, not even stopping when he hit the end of the counter. Nicholas stumbled off the edge and Derek instinctively moved forward with the gas, dropping all his pool stuff, except for the towel wrapped around him. Mrs. Suarez caught Nicholas with her forearm, hooking under his chest and snatching him from midair. Oh! She hugged her son, holding him securely against her body. A chorus of relieved sighs filled the room. Oh, that's his mom. She's pretty. Nicholas still paid no mind to the trail of disasters that began to squirm. He just wanted down already. Derek took another few steps forward, making his way over to the scene. Mrs. Suarez carefully held Nicholas out, her hands under his armpits, and safely set him down on his feet. He's so cute. Nicholas immediately wrapped his arms around Derek's legs. Derek chuckled while tugging at his towel so Nicholas wouldn't pull it off. Hold on, Nico. You're gonna get wet. Nico giggled mischievously and snugged closer. Derek snuck a quick peek over his shoulder back at you and shrugged. Just as a warning, Nicholas now had a damp splotch on his shirt. Hi, everybody. Hello, welcome, Rose. George hummed something that could have been a greeting as he frowned at the remaining puzzle. It was more than Nicholas, who gave no response at all. Well, Miss Suarez's tone was warm with a certain amount of humor to it. She rubbed her hands together and stood up. Derek and Rose are in charge now. Make sure you listen to them. George sourly picked up at the puzzle pieces, but gave a grumbling noise to signify he had heard. I'm going to head off to my appointment. She went to gather some things, officially putting you and Derek in charge, but then there wasn't 1 second you settled on your new position. You're going swimming? Nicholas looked up and stared with the huge, shining eyes. Derek reflexively stiffened. How would he escape the puppy dog look? Derek's eyebrows creased, a small sign of nervous compared to the smooth, pleasant sound of his voice. No, even better. He leaned down and lowered his voice like he was about to share a secret. We're gonna go to the park. Nicholas instantly frowned. He wasn't convinced by Derek's act. He grabbed at Derek's towel. No, we're swimming. Yeah, but I'm not anymore. I'm going to the park and you can come with me. No. Little Suarez whined and stomped his foot. His hand balled up around the neon fabric harshly enough that I almost took the towel from Derek. I want to go to the pool. I want to see Rose's swimsuit. What? Derek's jaw dropped. Either of you were prepared for that one. Did you hear Nicholas right? And you look down at yourself currently wrapped in a fuzzy towel. You switched your gaze to Derek's young brother, your brain trying to make sense of what was happening. Why would you want that? Why does Nicholas want anything? George rolled his eyes and continued mumbling into the corner. It was obvious to him he couldn't believe the rest of you were taking so long to catch up. Because Derek does. He didn't know what to feel about that. Derek narrowed his eyes and whispered harshly, Nicholas, George, you're gonna put me to an early grave. He took a deep breath as he stared at the ceiling. It took him a moment to face you. His voice was firm for someone at his level of embarrassment. I must have said something about hoping you better bring your swimsuit. I was excited for us to be able to swim, but I did want you to have one. Nicholas doesn't exactly want to see you in a bathing suit. He doesn't even know why he'd want that. He's just saying stuff. With that added context, you decided it wasn't anything to hold on to. Derek's explanation was sincere, and Nicholas did love to parent things. He snuck a little look at Nicholas, and he had crossed his arms high on his chest and squished his neck down far enough for the rest of his chin onto his wrist. I want to go swimming. His pout intensified when he said it again. He was very angry little baby. Derek tilted his head back to his heels, once again, driven to look at the ceiling by the strain of this kid. You glanced up there yourself without thinking about it. It was a calm white color with a few fixtures. When you squinted, you noticed something small and green. It appeared to be one of those sticky hands for kids. That was this another present from the youngest? You turned back to Derek. He appeared to have made a decision. All right, I promise that we can go swimming too, but only after the park. We'll go to the pool as soon as we come back. With that promise officially made, Nicholas lit up. He snatched one of Derek's hands. Let's go. We gotta get to the park so I can swim. While Nicholas celebrated, Derek closed his eyes and some of the worry creased in his face smoothed out. Derek, there's lunch packed in the fridge. Dad will be back before dinner. Gotcha, thanks, Mom. Have a good one. Mrs. Suarez waved and collected the last of her things, her purse off of the side table. She ruffled George's hair on her way out. You and Derek were alone with the kids. We shouldn't really stop leaving puddles everywhere. He gestured at the drops of water pooling at his feet. Good idea. You and Derek took turns changing. When you went first, while you could faintly hear Derek impressing on his brothers to listen to you two. He must have convinced them to behave for now, as neither George nor Nicholas acted up when Derek took his turn, drying off and clothing himself. You can get your lunch from the fridge. I'm gonna go pack my gear. No problem. He walked casually to the kitchen. George hadn't moved from his bar stool, even once since she had gotten back. Meanwhile, Nicholas followed Derek like a possessed shadow that was even more energetic than the original. He zipped around, occasionally trying to place things in Derek's backpack for him. So far, Derek had said no to the rubber duck, but he had agreed to bring an extra pair of socks that Nicholas had determined were absolutely necessary. Okay, got everything. Derek returned with a backpack on one hand and Nicholas' small hand in the other. We're going, George. Ready? Ready, Rose? Pretty sure. Sure. He pushed away from the counter and finally hopped off the chair with the enthusiasm of a plank of wood. We're going. Derek hid his smile at Nicholas' echo and ushered everyone outside. He locked the condo behind him and began the trip to the nearby park. Oh, it's this park! The park for the Suarez boys was the big park for your family. Their condo complexes was only a short distance from the public outdoor recreational area your mom sometimes drove you by. It was still a beautiful day outside and had only gotten a few degrees warmer from the morning swim. The field was bustling with other groups of people enjoying themselves. Derek led the way to the wide open part of the grass that no one else was using. He stopped in the middle of the field and turned 180 degrees to face the little boys behind him. He shrugged his backpack off his shoulder and dropped it to the ground. He knelt down to the root around inside of it. George and Nicholas waited in place for their brother. Derek gathered a couple things in his arm before pushing off the ground with his knees to get up again. He held a football in his left hand and a soccer ball in his right. All right, Nicholas, George, I've got to practice, but you can too. Which one do you want? Football. Real ball. You raised your eyebrows at their shouts, and Derek leaned over to you and whispered with a laugh. He means the soccer ball. It's real because it's actually the ball shape. Is that a problem? They want both? Derek simply grinned. I thought so. He tossed George a football first. George caught it. He tossed George the football first. George caught it from out of the air with one hand and began to bounce it up and down with his fingers, feeling the weight of it. Derek popped the soccer ball gently over to Nicholas, who watched his brother intently. Nicholas had to catch it with both hands. He wrapped his arms around the ball and hugged it to his chest. And with his brothers taken care of, Derek crouched again, revealing a third ball. He brought a second soccer ball. Derek had been prepared. He then sprung back on his feet. Another problem diverted. George, Nicholas, you can use this half the field. I'll use that half. Rose can be your ref, so don't get too far from her, all right? Okay. George tossed the football in the air, preoccupied. It spun in an arc downward. He looked like he trying to be sneaky. All right, I'm going to practice. Nicholas embraced the soccer ball tighter, pressing his cheek to it. You wondered just how he'd practice with it when the equipment was about as big as his head. The child looking completely content with the world, but Derek's eyes narrowed. Once again, he shared some of Nicholas's info into your ear. Watch him. It's not over. He copies what I say, but it's not what he means. You sneak a peek at Nicholas. He appeared so innocent, clutching the ball, staring at the patch of clover grass, but you interacted with him enough to not question his potential for trouble. You make sure to keep an eye on the kid. I will. Thanks, Rose. Your lifesaver. Derek held a soccer ball in both hands and cheered. Hey, bros. Bye, bros. Bye. Derek put on a smile as he picked up his bag, tucked his soccer ball under his arm, and jogged to the side of the field. He didn't have time to lose. He stood with his younger Suarez boys, effectively turned loose. George stared at you with uncertainty while Nicholas' mischievous smirk could only make you guess what he was thinking. He looked so mischievous, like I'm crying. You weren't going to make Mr. and Mrs. Suarez regret letting you come, and you especially weren't going to disappoint Derek. You were going to watch those boys. Time to be in charge. I'm going to play over there. He pointed vaguely to the opposite side of the field from Derek and trotted off to entertain themselves. You let him go without argument. George wasn't the problem child. When you saw him settle in and throwing around his football and chasing it, you smiled. Would only need to manage Nicholas. You aimed your grin towards him, but instead of being in a clover patch, he was missing. You snapped your head back and forth until you spotted him in a fumbling dash across the grass, struggling to keep his soccer ball from slipping through his own arm. When Derek said watch him, he had really meant it. Well, you just had to push up your sleeves. He wasn't the first troublemaker you had to deal with, and he wasn't going to be the last. Hey, come back here, young man. The kid kept scrambling through the field. Yelling louder didn't help. You had to physically get him. You jogged over to him. Luckily, his small legs made it easy to close the distance, and then pass him. You planted yourself in front of his path. He didn't look up until he bumped right into your legs. Nicholas snickered. He tried to dash around you, so you had to shift left to block his progress, then went right and you speedily sidestepped. Soon you both were going back and forth as though you were actually playing a game of soccer, and Nicholas was trying to get past you to score. The soccer ball tumbled from his arms. You kicked the ball back to him and suggested playing. Let's play. I'm gonna get it. He squealed at the idea. He chased the ball, determined to beat you to it. And wound up to kick. He overshot the angle of his foot and the ball bounced off awkwardly. Then you were the one after the soccer ball. It didn't go that far. You let Nicholas get it again so he could continue to gradually kick the ball across the field. He sent some strands of grass into the air along with the ball on the second go. Darn, I'm gonna get you. Nicholas cackled while bumping the ball along. No, I'm gonna win. When you next got close to the soccer ball, he switched strategies. Nicholas grabbed it with his hand so he could simply run for it. That's not how soccer works. It's mine. You laughed off his blanket rule breaking and started running around after Nicholas directly. The only times your gaze strayed from the little Suarez was when you blinked and sent the occasional glance to George's way. George continued to enjoy his time at the park without any need for assistance, so you spent most of your energy on the mischievous maker. And after smoothing out the initial bump of the afternoon, things evened out. At least things were fine until the trial known as lunch arrived. It started with the appearance of Derek. His presence sent Nicholas into a hyperdrive. He bounced on the tips of his toes and waved both of his arms frantically. Derek's back. He tackled his older brother and latched around Derek's left leg. George, like half of the entire park, noticed and shouted. He jogged over to see what any important updates were happening without him. Derek winced. Hey bros. Hey bros. I hope you're doing alright. As he spoke, he let his bag drop to the ground. He crouched over it and scrounged up the pack of lunches. I'm having fun. That's awesome. You beamed back at him. Despite being a handful, you were enjoying Nicholas. He kept you on your toes. Are you having fun, Nicholas? Yeah, me too. What about you, George? Yeah. Derek set aside 3 paper bags in the grass, one in front of Nicholas, the other in front of George, and the third went to you. Derek kept the 4th lunch inside his backpack. He only pulled out a water bottle out from it and closed the bag back up. Okay, Nicholas, you gotta eat now with Rose and George. Nicholas clenched Derek's jeans more desperately as he whined. You're not gonna eat with me? Derek scratched the back of his head and gave a longing glance back to where he had been practicing. Do you mind, Rose? I was hoping I'd be more time for practice. He bit his lip, hope clear on his face. He had confidence that you could handle lunch alone. Sure, good luck with your practice. Thanks, I'll eat one. Nicholas whimpered, never stopped. Being high-pitched background noise, Derek ruffled his hair. Hey, check this out. Nicholas picked up a soccer ball and placed it on top of his head. Nicholas' jaw dropped theatrically as Derek fully stood up while keeping it balanced. Wow. Nicholas cheered and jumped up and down while still holding on to Derek's leg. Derek bent his knee and then popped up fast enough to launch the ball in the air, and he caught it on his head again. Ha! Derek let go of his brother to clap. Derek grinned at Nicholas, but his gaze flicked to you for a second. The show was over. Derek inclined his head and let the soccer ball drop into his hands. He held it out to Nicholas. Make sure to eat a good lunch, okay? Then you can get back to practicing. Okay. Nicholas spoke into the soccer ball he had cuddled in his face. He'd been starstruck enough that he couldn't disagree with anything his big brother said. Derek waved at you and George before heading over to where he'd left his soccer ball, carrying only the water bottle with him. George promptly took a seat in the grass by the lunch bags. Nicholas put the soccer ball on his head, immediately rolled off. He just tried again. You reached over for the lunches. Each bag had clearly written name in marker ink. George collected his bag. You had yours, and you attempted to give the last one to its proper owner. But Nicholas showed zero interest in the bag. You imagine he would have been more interested in Derek's lunch bag, even though they probably had the same meal. George scoffed, knowing his brother was going to be difficult again. He took the sandwich from his bag. From looks alone, you guessed it was a sliced deli turkey and pale-colored cheese and some veggies. With Nicholas clearly busy, you took his sandwich out for him, and the sandwich was ham and some sort of orangey cheese, cheddar, almost certainly. You offered the food directly to Nicholas. He still didn't bite. He wanted to play. Nicholas, if you want to play, then you have to eat. I don't want to have to take the ball, but I will keep it if you keep using it as a distraction. No. He stomped his foot, raising his brows. You crossed your arms and tried to look as commanding as you could. Mine. Your food is also yours. You should eat it. I will. With a huff, Nicholas held the ball behind him with one hand and snatched his sandwich from you in the other. He took a few steps and plopped down on the grass. The ball rolled towards the space between you both, and you were more concerned about his lunch. Nicholas crossed the legs under him, and frustration disappeared almost instantly with his first bite. That was one sibling fed and one to go. You glanced over at George and saw that he was already partway through eating his lunch. Satisfied, you finally decided it was safe to pick up your own sandwich. Finishing the last corner of your square-shaped meal, you wondered if Mrs. Suarez had talked to one of your moms beforehand about lunch. The sandwich was made how you would have had it at home. She was either prepared or very lucky, but considering what her oldest son was like, you were guessing luck had nothing to do with it. Along with these sandwiches, there was also bags of carrots, celery, and a few cookies. Between the three of you, it wasn't long before all snacks were gone. With nothing left to nibble on, Nicholas yawned and curled up in the grass, cuddling the soccer ball against his chest. George stood up, watching his little brother fall asleep. Once he was certain that Nicholas was down for the count, he started cleaning up the trash. You admired the maturity he showed for his age. It wasn't just Derek who had that streak after all. You helped gather the trash while musing about the Suarez brothers. Derek was the oldest, who his parents relied on, while Nicholas was the baby of the family, and for a little kid, he was forced to be reckoned with. George was the one stuck in the middle. Hey, I saw your football throws earlier. They were really good. George spun around on his heel. He seemed stunned, like he wasn't sure if he imagined your compliment or not. In a couple of years, you could totally get on the junior football team. He nodded and blush grew on his face until it reached his ears. Okay. He hurried and went back to what he was doing before. George was embarrassed, but you also noticed there was a bounce in his step that wasn't there before. The park suddenly felt empty. Nicholas asleep. He took up a lot of space despite his tiny size. Chuckling to yourself, you found a comfortable spot in the grass and scanned the area for Derek. You eventually caught sight of him running in the distance. Even from here, you could tell that Derek was persistent about his practice. He went back and forth, repeating the same set of moves, reassessing and refining his form every time. Though it wasn't long before he paused to wipe his brow with his black wristband, Derek happened to glance your way at that moment and realized you had an audience of one. He gave a huge wave with both hands that required he crossed both his arms over his head, and before you knew it, Derek's strides were bringing him back over to you and his brothers. Phew, that's it. I'm going to be done with practice. I'm back. Welcome back. Thanks for watching George and Nicholas. I didn't mean for it to be so long. It's okay. I'm happy I could help you out. The sincerity in your voice had Derek bashfully keeping his eyes on his shoes instead. I probably end up saying it again, but thanks, Rose. You're a lifesaver. Next, he shifted his attention over to his brothers. George gave a little wave. He'd been waiting patiently for his big brother to wrap up his conversation with you. We're going back. George simply got up, not needing any more guidance, while Derek kneeled in the grass to nudge Nicholas out of dreamland. A single eye cracked open at first, and then they both popped wide open when he realized who was with him. Derek! Nicholas sprang off the ground, wrapping his arms around his big brother like a vice grip and nuzzled into his chest. Derek gave Nicholas' head a single pat. Practice was good today. Let's go home. Let's go home. Nicholas' hushed voice echoed his brother's, put a warm smile for your face. Stretching your arms high over your head, you surveyed the area to make sure that nothing was left behind. You were all clear, and it felt good to have another solo round of babysitting successfully under your belt. With your leadership, no one got lost, injured, swallowed something that they shouldn't have, or even declared that they hated you for eternity. So in your book, you said you went fairly well. 15-minute walk back to the park passed by pleasantly. The late afternoon sun fell behind you, and your shadow soon stretched across the sidewalk. You wiggled your fingers and then exaggerated your hand movements in order to watch the shadow change. Meanwhile, next to you, Derek was finally eating his lunch. Although he had to eat his sandwich with the hand Nicholas was clasping onto. George entertained himself with the full ball he still carried. He periodically tossed it up in the air and caught it again. You can easily imagine how often the three of them had made this trip before, with only the three of them, but you didn't feel out of place strolling along the group. It felt natural. Beaming, you found your gaze settling on Derek again. You knew without a doubt that the way you felt was because of him. He was so good at making you feel welcome. In time, you made it safely back, and Derek dropped his bag on the floor with a quiet sigh of relief. Any hope had to take things easy for a second immediately evaporated. Oy, we're going to the pool as soon as we come back. Nicholas's joy was palpable, parroting back Derek's promise from earlier in the day. As the words dawned on him, Derek closed his eyes and breathed deeply. Yep, we are. Get ready. And that was all the approval Nicholas and George needed. They both dashed off to their shared room to get changed. Derek sluggishly opened his eyes, and his tiredness softened when he looked at you. Okay. Practice is done. If you want to stay up here until our moms come back to get you, that's cool. Derek gave a partial shrug and then ran to hand through his hair shyly. You don't have to go swimming again. I'm not going to let you be outnumbered by George and Nicholas. Blinked in surprise by your serious answer. You put your hands on your hips. Oh, I can see little things moving. Oh, that's cool. You just wouldn't be fair. You could tell by Derek's brow pinch for a moment that he had something important at the tip of his tongue, but then his expression softened. Thanks, I could use the backup. It wasn't much longer before the younger kids came running out to rejoin you and Derek. They both wore their neon colored swimsuits and had towels wrapped around their shoulders. Nice job. You even remembered your floaty vest. Derek kneeled down to make sure his safety device was properly secured. Nicholas stood tall, with his chest out proudly. He didn't fear the scrutinization. I did the straps for him. Perfect, thanks. George brightened just as his younger brother had. Standing back up, Derek shifted his attention to you. Same quick change strategy from earlier? Yeah. You darted off the change first. Derek nodded seriously when you returned to take over for him. He reemerged a couple minutes later, diligently went over to the counter to write something down. Curious, you inched over. Just gotta leave a note so Dad knows where we are. Then we can go. Oh, sounds good. Everything was squared away, as Derek was always sure to do it. The four of you marched right back out of the apartment for another excursion. By the time the stink smell of the chlorine kicked your nose, the sun had fallen low in the sky. You circled around some nearby lounge chairs and deemed them capable of keeping your things safe. Inspecting the gleaming water, you noticed that George and Nicholas hadn't moved towards the pool yet. Both the little boys were watching Derek like hawks. You picked up enough that afternoon to know it's because George didn't want to do anything without permission, and Nicholas didn't want to do anything Derek wasn't doing. There I go. And Derek himself knew it too. He didn't keep them waiting. Derek offered his brothers an encouraging wave and strolled over to the pool. You remained nice and dry on the solid land. You happily observed Derek's pause at the pool's edge. He prepared himself with focus, adding a little suspense for his brothers, and dove in. The other Schwartz sons followed. George jumped in without any hesitation, but Nicholas sped right to the edge, only to come to an abrupt stop. His toes curled around the edge of the pool and his lips were pressed into a tight frown. Nicholas tipped his head and stared down at the water, clutching his hands together. He was scared to jump. Nicholas would rather the pool come to the rest of the way to him, and he wasn't going to be a good sport. Derek and George popped out of the water with matching wide grins and droplets clinging to the tips of their hair. Neither were surprised that they were missing their baby brother. All right. Woohoo. That was awesome. Nicholas' cry for help came out in a tiny impatient squeak. He began wiggling in place. Derek clutched and swarmed over the shallower spot. The 6-year-old followed closely, toddling along the edge. When his feet touched the pool's solid bottom, Derek stood up. He kindly held his arms out towards his brother. Come on, Nico. The water's fine. The grin. His grin is killing me. Trusting him completely, Nicholas let go of his fear. He took a step over the side and walked into his favorite person's hole. Derek embraced Nicholas as he dropped against his chest. Then Derek slowly lowered him closer into the water before he completely let his little brother go. Nicholas bobbed under with a small splash and broke out again in an instant like a boy. He was bursting at the seams with excitement. Nicholas made the most of his new floating freedom by dog paddling around the shallow end. Checking on George, you noticed that he was sticking to the center of the pool. He bounced himself from floor to the surface for air and then pushed back down to do it all over again. He leaped around in a circle. Derek rested on his arm across the pool's edge and took a moment to watch his brothers too. He stood over where Derek had himself situated and sat down on the tile closest to him. Crossing your legs, you felt a cooling breeze wafting off the water. It was nice, but your skin still bristled with goosebumps. You knew the temperature change signaled that the day was almost over. Derek kept his main focus on his family. Though he spared a moment to tilt his head in your direction, a few beads of water trailed from his hairline down to his jaw. Babysitting went well, as you thought, huh? Yeah, I think it went pretty well. My brothers are fun, some of the time. He chuckled at his own joke and ran a damp hand down his face to try getting at least some of the water off. Finally, rays of sunshine cast a warm glow on his skin and the pool sparkled as he finally turned his attention directly to you. Derek's mouth turned into his usual wonderful smile. I don't know what I'd do without them. You sound like a proud dad. He smirked at your cheesy, but it quickly lost his force as his cheeks grew pink. Derek hid his face in his hands. You don't even want to think about being a real parent right now. Being the oldest kid is enough for me. I feel that. Shaking his head, he kept his brothers in his sight. The affection turned to his expression. I'm proud of them, though. George and Nicholas remained engrossed with their own watery adventure, while you and Derek kept track of them. You were in mid-conversation when the sound of footsteps echoed off of the wall surrounding the pool. Derek shot an arm out of the water and waved at the newcomer. Dad.
Good evening.
Oh, snap. Yeah. They're so cute. Dad. All the Squires boys eagerly paddled over to the end of the pool where their father stood. They moved together in the water with their heads beside each other and their legs kicked out behind them like a pile of sea pups. Welcome home. Thank you, George. Mr. Squire's voice was sweet as he observed his children's happy faces. Eventually, he spotted you as well and tucked his fingers into the edge of his vest with vigor. Oh, this is a pool party today, huh? You know, a party should have a proper food. Let's order pizza for dinner tonight. Yeah. Laughing with excitement, Nicholas started smacking the palms of his hands together against the water surface, making several bursting splashes. George flicked the droplets from the tips of his fingers to Nicholas in retaliation. Chuckling over the scene, Mr. Suarez brought a hand up and held it to his chin. He scratched at his beard with his thumb. Half cheese, half pepperoni for the first, correct? Yes. Pepperoni? Nicholas threw his hands in the air as he cheered. Mr. Suarez nodded, pleased his little one still had a predictable taste.
Wonderful.
Okay, the meat and veggie supreme for Irene and I on the second. He settled his gaze on Derek and you for the final decision. Suggestions for what the final half should be? Rose, you pick. You tapped your finger against your knee as you thought about it. More supreme. Derek gave you a huge thumbs up for that. So in full, half cheese, half pepperoni, and one supreme. Exactly. Thank you, children. I'll put the order in now, and I'll come back to let you know when it's ready. Until then, continue to play. Thanks, Dad. Bye. Bye, Mrs. Suarez. Mrs. Suarez closed the pool gate behind him, leaving you kids to your fun. You dipped your feet in the water. Sighing happily, you stretched and wiggled your toes in the water. In Mrs. Suarez's absence, Derek took charge again. Alright, you heard it. Dad's ordering pizza, so it'll be here in like 30 minutes. So think fast. What's the last thing you want to do before we leave the pool? Nicholas furrowed his brows, thinking as hard as he could. He scrunched his face together in frustration when nothing came to mind. Meanwhile, George put his hand on his chin and tilted his head to the side. He stared up and off into space as he considered the question. He left it open for the younger kids to decide. Narrowing your gaze, you wondered who would speak up first. You crossed your arms and sat tight. The boys would have to come up with their own answers. Could we make a whirlwind? Yeah. Nicholas' pupils grew huge in it with anticipation. Yeah. Nicholas giggled as Derek hooked his fingers around the vest straps. Derek started moving forward, dragging his little brother along for the ride. George pumped his arms and excitedly jogged against the resistance of the water, and you decided to cheer them on faster and faster. Around and around they went from corner to corner of the shallow end. It wasn't long before there was enough motion to start a current. Nicholas was still loudly squealing when Derek let go so he could float along the moving water. Like a man on a mission, George hopped out of the pool and barreled into the nearby pool shed. He reemerged with the pool noodle victoriously held in his fist. George jumped back into the pool with it between his legs. He surfaced and drifted along, riding the pool noodle like a cowboy riding the horse off into the sunset. Derek continued to push the water by running in circles to stop the whirlwind dying out. Each time Derek lapped one of his brothers into the pool, he gave them a high five. The four of you thoroughly enjoyed your time at the pool. It flew by so fast that you were surprised when you spotted Mrs. Suarez cruising down to the water's edge once more. Dinner's here, and even better, Mom's home. Yeah, the youngest Suarez threw his wet confetti in the air, and even his dad wasn't safe from it. Mr. Suarez took a stride and wiped his glasses against his vest. Derek was out of breath, but he beamed. Let's go get some food. Yeah. Mr. Suarez led the way to the apartment, and the four of you kids marched with eager, spurring your steps, despite wrapping in towels, you dripping water the whole way there. The savory smell of hot cheese and garlic crust was there to greet you when you arrived at the door. You could hear the musical words of Mr. Suarez too. Welcome home. Hi. Hi, Mom. Hi. Feeling a bit awkward, out of place, she gave a tiny wave. Miss Suarez didn't miss it. She voiced softened as she spoke to you first. Hello, Rose. I would hope you had fun today. I did. We had lots of fun. Very good. Mrs. Suarez then went over to the kitchen where the food was set on the counter. She popped the boxes open and delightfully glanced over at her husband. It was such a good idea. Thank you. Mrs. Suarez dipped his head in a tiny bow. He followed that by gesturing a hand towards the food. Come get dinner. Youngest to oldest order. Despite the order given, it's no surprise that George was the one who moved first. You figured Nicholas would wait for Derek, even if he didn't have to. George tore off a paper towel from the roll and used it to grab a slice of plain cheese pizza. He huffed it back over to the entryway, standing there so he wouldn't bring any water further into the apartment. You go next, Rose. It'll be easier that way. The food smelled even better up close. You grabbed a slice of Supreme. You hurried back to the entryway with your dinner. Derek went next, tiptoeing over with Nicholas at his heels. He grabbed a slice of pepperoni and passed it to Nicholas. Derek then grabbed a slice of pepperoni for himself, but instead of going to the entryway, he went to the open space on the floor. You curiously watched as Derek laid his towel on the floor, then sat down on it and crossed his legs. Nicholas plopped down on the towel right next to him and started on one of his pizza crust corners. You decided to sit down on the towel instead. Oh, that's a good idea. You followed Derek's example and laid your own towel on the floor with cheeks stuffed with pizza. Derek gave you the cheeriest close mouth smile he could. Finally, Mr. and Mrs. Suarez got their slices of pizza. They stood in the living room in between the spots their sons had taken. So, how did you spend your day while we were out? We did lots of things. In between taking big bites of pizzas, the Suarez family started taking turns telling stories about their day. Nicholas recounted the events of the day with his most enthusiasm. Even though they were the same plot points from his brother's stories and the ones you witnessed firsthand, from his perspective, the events were almost mythically amazing. Storytelling was hungry work, though the slices didn't last long at all. The food was chipped away piece by piece until everyone was stuffed. Nicholas lay down on the floor, limbs stretched out and still wrapped in his towel. He was completely tuckered from the day. Mrs. Suarez plucked him off the floor and held him under one arm. Bath time, come on, Junior. Yes, Dad. Nicholas accepted his fate and his arms hung limply down. George crumpled up under his paper towel to a ball and tossed it into the trash. He followed his dad. Thank you. Mrs. Suarez watched them go with gentle affection in her gaze. She patted her husband's shoulders as he passed by and then strolled over to you and Derek. And thank you for a good day's work. I appreciate you both taking care of Nicholas and George today. Her cheeriness reminded you so much of Derek's. She pointed with her thumb over her shoulder. Dad and I will take them from here. Thanks, Mom. You could see the wave of relief wash over him, as clear as the actual water he had just swam in. I'll keep an ear out for the phone. Pamela said she'd call when they're on the way here to get Rose. Okay. After that, Miss Suarez excused herself to go help George and Nicholas. Ready for bedtime. When she disappeared down the hall, Derek leaned back on the palms of his hands. He lazily rolled his head in your direction. We could get dressed again. Andy, would you want to hang out in my room until your moms get here? Yeah, let's do that. You can get changed first. He stretched his legs out on the floor while you stood up, and you could feel a slight ache in your muscles from today's activities. It wasn't bad. You given all your all during the babysitting adventure. Gathering your things up in your arms, you left to get changed. It wasn't long before you and Derek went over to his room for some sibling-less free time. Oh, his room looks so nice. It's so sporty. Derek opened his bedroom door and gesturing for you to lead the way. You went in while he followed close behind, shutting the door once more. He's so well-mannered. Your eyes widened as you scanned the small space. Usually, you were outside when you hung out with Derek, so this was the first time you'd seen inside his room. With reach of his neatly made bed was a bookshelf filled with novels. Various scattered soccer balls and footballs stuck out around the book and furniture. Things were arranged and organized in the same care that Derek put into most things he did. If there was more important time, you were sure there would be tons of trinkets and treasures to spot there. Like an I Spy game. It wasn't big, but Derek made most of his small piece of the world. Your room is cool. Really? Bashful, Derek scratched the back side of his neck. He cheerfully watched you look over his things until it clicked. Oh, you've never hung out in a room before, have? Huh? Nope, it's first time. That's kind of weird to think about. But anyway, sorry, I don't have any chairs in here. You sit on my bed if you want. Thanks, I appreciate that. At the edge of his mattress. After a busy day you had, it was without a doubt nice to relax on something soft. Derek's expression brightened since you took him up on his offer. Derek crossed over to the foot of his bed and sat there on the end of it, his jaw stretched open in a huge yawn that he quickly covered with his hand. Phew, we're finally done. There was no missing the proud satisfaction burning in his green eyes, but you could also consequently see the places where he was tilting. Sometimes you kind of worry about how he threw himself wholeheartedly into things all the time. I hope I was at least helpful today. Definitely. His holder meter lit up as he pressed the palms of his hands into the mattress and leaned slightly in your direction. An embarrassment blush rose on your cheeks. Seriously, Rose, you were super helpful. Today was the easiest babysitting has ever been. It was fun too. I had no idea. I'm even more glad I was here. Me too. Derek stretched his arms high in the air and yawned again. His eyelids dropped as he turned towards you. Gradually, the carefree warmth faded from his demeanor. His face fell into a quiet frown when his hands returned to his lap. You have to do it again, Rose, whether it's a good time or a bad time. It's just a lot of time, and you have your own things to deal with. Your brows bent at that. Tilting your head, you couldn't help but think about how much of Derek's day went to his brothers. He definitely didn't seem to match how things were with your sister and you. But then, as if summoned by your thoughts about him, the bedroom door creaked open enough to let a giggling Nicholas slip in. He threw his hand in the air. I'm dressed. With a loud thud, the door swung fully open. George marched in with an extremely annoying scowl. He put his hands on his hips. Nicholas were playing in the living room, not Derek's room. George reached for his younger brother, but Nicholas scurried up onto the bed. He warily peeked at George from behind Derek's shoulder. Derek Nolby didn't say a single word, nor did he appear surprised about this intrusion at all. The only movement he made was a light pat on the mess of hair on Nicholas's head, like usual. What wasn't unusual was a distant look on his face. He accepted the reality at hand, but did not welcome it. Mr. Suarez crowded into the next room. Excuse us. Sorry, Derek. He slipped away in a flash. Yeah. Come on, Nicholas. Let Derek and Rose have some peace. The youngest Suarez stubbornly clung to Derek's arm. His cheeks puffed out angrily. Nicholas, go hang out with Mom and Dad. Don't you want to see them too? They missed you today. I don't want to see Mom and Dad too. Come on, Derek. Don't you want to see Mom and Dad too? Nicholas loosened his grip and he shifted to get a better look at his big brother. Derek sighed spiritless. I do, but I have a friend over right now. I'll spend time with Mom and Dad and you later. Nicholas bent forward and grasped Derek's pant leg. He brought out a big guns and stared up at him with his mouth pitiful, eyes and matching pout. He said, it's a happy day. Nicholas immediately whipped his head in your direction. He clearly had forgotten that you were there, right? Feeling more awkward by the second, you paused while the youngest Schwartz did nothing but stare. Eventually you shrugged. I had fun. I thought we all did. And we're all still together, so there's no need to be sad when we're nearby in the other rooms. Ears started swelling up and he turned back to shoulder big brother. Nicholas' jaw clenched as he tightened his grip on his brother's leg. Nicholas, we're reading a story right now. Nicholas angrily shook his head as he advanced across the room. She unapologetically peeled her small child off of Derek. The young boy let out a high-pitched whine from the entire extraction. George frowned sympathetically over the confrontation while Derek winced at the noise. When the deed was done, the middle son followed his mom out of the room. You could still hear Nicholas' piercing cry as he was carried away. I'm very sorry about the interruption. Continue as you were. None of us were here. He gave the both of you an encouraging smile before carefully shutting the door again. It was finally silent. Derek kept an eye out until he honestly believed there wouldn't immediately be another sibling disaster. When he deemed it safe, he let out a quick sigh in an attempt to choke back the harsher groan. Derek flopped back against the mattress with another huff and stretched his arms out to his sides. His arms twitched and his fingers curled into a fist. There's never any privacy here. How am I still having to deal with things even after spending almost a whole day with them? You held your tongue, waiting patiently for him to get it all out. Derek muttered grievances under his breath. With a harsh glare aimed at the ceiling for a good minute, he screwed his mouth shut. I think you've done a really good job with everything. He didn't respond, but you witnessed the bulk of his anger gradually fade from his brow before he attempted to look in your direction. And when he did, he saw a spark of his usual vibrancy. It gradually returned as he held your gaze. You were thankful that your presence seemed to help bring him back to feel like himself again. I mean it. I know you do. Thanks, Rose. Evening his breath, Jesus. Derek folded his arms across his chest and squeezed his eyelids shut. You could tell by the tension in his face that he was still bothered. He was thinking hard, searching for something. I can make this work. His low mumble was followed by a pause that had you intrigued. And then he jumped forward so that he was sitting upright again. The grin you were so used to seeing was back in full force. Rose, want to go back to the pool? Nobody's going to be there this late, and my bros aren't going to be able to leave the house. We don't have to get in or even change our clothes. I think it'd just be kind of a nice place to talk and sort of thing. Avoiding your gaze, Derek nervously rubbed the back of his head. You could tell that he was trying his hardest to be nonchalant, but it wasn't exactly succeeding. Thinking. All right. Derek leaped up to his feet, turned, holding his hand out for you to take. Chuckle, you gripped his hand tightly. Derek squeezed you back and helped you pull to your feet. Let's go. Oh my God. The door slowly creaked open as Derek peeked out, double checking that the coast was clear. He gave you a thumbs up. I don't see Nicholas. I think we're good. He returned his thumbs up silently hoping that this wasn't the calm before the storm. Derek led you into the living room where you found his dad and George sitting together. God dang it. Hello, Mom said Nicholas is in his room, enraptured in another exciting session of story time. Good. Rose and I are going to go down by the pool area and hang out. Is that okay? Of course. He chuckled, knowing exactly what Derek was trying to accomplish. George was perfectly happy where he was with his dad, so he waved goodbye to you both. I'll keep Rose out too late. I won't, thanks, Dad. Derek whispered with a complete confidence you gave your appreciation in an equal, hushed tone. Thank you, Mr. Suarez. The last thing either of you wanted was to alert your youngest Suarez if anything fun was happening without his knowledge, so you both silently slipped out of the apartment. Once you were free from the condo's walls, Derek's excitement was palpable. You picked up the pace and raced to the pool gate. For the third time in a single day, you and Derek stepped on the condo complex private pool deck, but you soon realized you hadn't seen everything it had to offer yet. Under the cover of the night, the pool was completely aglow with lights set into the bottom. The bright blue struck you as inviting breaths of steam drifting off the top of the water, whispering how warm it was. The closed-in space was clear of any other people and had been like that for a while considering the stillness of the pool. Not a single ripple disrupted its aquamarine surface. Here, you'd have peace and privacy. Derek was drawn to the water like a moth to a flame. He wordlessly rolled up his jeans and tugged off his sneakers and socks, and ducked his feet right into the pool up in the middle of his calf. He stretched and wiggled his bare toes in comfortable embrace of the heated pool on the summer night. You joined Derek at the edge. You dipped your feet in water as well. You removed your shoes and let your feet soak in the pool. It was as pleasant as a sparkling appearance promised. The water had none of the slight chill that the air did. It was a perfect amount of heat. Derek wrapped both his hands around the smooth tile edge and tilted back. One of his legs kicked up as his back drifted down, like his upper and lower body were each one side of the seesaw. He grinned playfully at you. So what were we talking about? Well, you were saying I'd like to have my help, but it wasn't my job to watch your brothers. I didn't have to do it again. Oh, yeah. He solemnly brought his torso back up until he was hunched over the water. He stared down at it. All his lightheartedness had disappeared in that instant. Things were already kind of a bummer before I got interrupted. That sucks. There wasn't any heart in it. Derek managed to chuckle. Sorry for making my problems your problems. He dug his fingers into the side of his hair, scratching at it in frustration. I didn't know what my problem is. They came in my room in 5 seconds. I'm so dramatic. No? Derek is not dramatic. And it wasn't the only thing that happened today. Yeah. Derek crossed his arms tight and pushed him against the top of his legs. The blue water rippled around him as his legs moved against the pool wall. He pressed his heels into it. The pressure that had been only inside was coming out. It's just the thing is, Nicholas and George need me all the time, and my parents need me because they need me. I don't want to let them down, I really don't, but it's hard. Every day it's like I'm going to mess up and disappoint somebody. He bit his tongue and released his limbs from the locked positions. they'd been stuck in. He couldn't scrub the fur away from his brows. Forget it. Everyone has stuff to worry about, not just me. Mom has to take care of them way more than I do, and Dad works the job pretty much the entire day. You don't have to brush yourself off.
I don't know.
He went silent, unmoved. Nicholas was the one who caused trouble, but somehow Derek had made himself the bad guy. It was upsetting, but Derek wasn't anywhere close to really being grown up. Of course, he couldn't be perfect, even though he acted like he thought he should be. Derek, remember when your dad first came to the pool and you and George and Nicholas were all so excited? You were just like your brothers. Even if you're in charge sometimes, you're still your parents' kid. You don't have to act like an adult, especially not with me. Finally, slowly and carefully, Derek darted to glance at you again. Thanks, Rose, for saying all that. His shoulders squished inward and framed his lower head. He looked so much like a hopeful puppy that he could give even Nicholas a run for his money in that adorable face department.
Is it annoying?
It really doesn't bother you that I complain and sometimes hang out with me means helping out with 2 other kids? For all the confidence Derek displayed, when push came to shove, he was pretty insecure about himself and what you thought of him. Derek showed his full face to you. It was lit up by the light shining through the water. A smile on his face was just as glittering. Well, I don't ever want to be a pain, but it's really cool to have a friend who doesn't mind listening to me and being there. He didn't say that lightly. He only wanted to let himself be there for you and everyone else. Being somebody Derek could count on was special. You wouldn't let him down. Then his eyebrows furrowed mischievously, and just like that, he catapulted right off the tile into the pool. You gasped as you were the one who suddenly got plunged underwater. Yo! Derek burst through the surface with a loud, gasping laugh. Water's great. You shook your head at his spontaneous swim. Everything's gonna be good, Rose. I'm not an adult. That it was true. You splashed Derek from the ground. Before he could blink, you sprayed him already driven face with another heaping serving of pool water. Game on. He sent a wave over the edge of the pool and you scrambled away. He chuckled triumphantly. You might have the high ground, but I got the resources. Laughter and sloshing water brought one stagnant pool to life. You and Derek still had the place to yourself and made the absolute most of it. But eventually Derek crawled up the stairs and out the pool. His baggy clothes poured out many waterfalls. With every step he took on land, Derek looked especially tiny with his drenched jersey draped over his frame. You got to your feet and walked over to Derek, not wanting him to have to make a trip alone in that state. He gave you a thumbs up. Then he carefully tipped his head to the side and tapped his hand against his ear to get the water out.
Well,
All right, time to face the music. Having to go home damped Derek's mood far more than the water on his body. He could do anything here in the wide open pool with you as his only companion. Going back to his family came with countless expectations and responsibilities, but it still had to be done. Yeah. You gave a small nod, ready yourself for whatever might happen when you arrived at the Suarez condo. Without another word, you collected your shoes and left the little oasis behind. The 2 of you walked side by side. When you made it to the front door, Derek used the key from his pocket to open it. He hadn't forgotten to bring it, despite leaving under rush in uneasy circumstances. Derek stood there in front of the unlocked door, just staring at it. Practically a preparation was his fort. Making himself ready for bumps in the relationships was not. I've got your back, Derek. We can do it. Yeah. He took a huge breath through his nose and turned the knob. The living room was quiet when you went inside. Suarez had moved over to the kitchen, were busy putting together a puzzle. Mr. Suarez's shoulders blocked your view, so you couldn't see what picture was supposed to be. Mrs. Suarez and Nicholas were nowhere in sight. You guessed they were still in the younger boy's bedroom. It was strange not to have someone cheering and shouting when Derek walked through the door. There was a feeling of absence. We're back. He announced himself with an absolute lack of enthusiasm. He might as well have been calling off bingo numbers to an empty room. Mr. Swears lifted his head and turned to face both of them. At the same time, he eagerly pushed his chair away from the counter.
I see.
I see. Thank you for coming home. The greeting he gave was normal. The greeting he gave was so normal that it was weird, considering how Derek brought a bucket full of water absorbed in his clothes. George offered a typical family greeting of his own, not taking his eyes off the puzzle. He was either focused or avoiding the awkwardness.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. Derek slightly poked a bare big toe into a prickly entryway doormat. The mess Derek's foot was making was too much for a little mat to contain. Water leaked out from the edges. Derek attempted to face his family was going equally smooth. The bright pleasantries on Mr. Swears' face softened into warmth. He followed through on the motion that he started and got out of his chair. He crossed the living room to stand with the two of you at the front door. My hardworking son is always in demand, huh? Our family needs to learn to share, especially Nicholas. The last part was said with a little chuckle. Derek didn't smile from the compliment, but he did start to blush.
Excuse me.
Excuse us. A new voice came from the hall. Miss Suarez stood there with her hands on her hips, peeking out from behind the skirt of her dress, a distinct spiky nest of brown hair. Now that you're here, someone has something he wants to say to his big brother. Her words got George to actually turn away from the puzzle and watch the scene, but Nicholas remained hidden. Her encouragement wasn't enough. As always, he was waiting for Derek. He didn't need to tell Derek that, though. He knew it was far better than you. He shifted his weight on his feet and gave Nicholas an invitation. Okay then, what did you want to say? Nicholas darted off from behind his mom with enough speed to flutter her dress. His tiny feet thundered over to the floor until he came to an abrupt stop in front of his favorite person. He had to lean his head in a way back to get Derek's eyes. Derek looked down to meet his gaze. Nicholas resisted the urge to hug him and instead clutched at the collar of his own shirt. Sorry, that's your room. And from how much Nicholas struggled to explain his apology, it was obvious he wasn't at a point where he understood why being together at this time wasn't completely a fantastic idea. All that had gotten through was that he upset his brother, and that had in turn upset him. Nicholas bit his lip and moved his hand to pull the bottom of his shirt instead of the top. The best he could come up with next was simply repeating himself. Sorry. Derek's lip quivered just a bit as he patiently listened to his little brother. Should say sorry to her too. Rose helped you a lot today. Nicholas instantly twisted his head towards you and echoed the word. He was very serious. Sorry, Rose. I appreciate that you apologize. Nicholas hopped up on the pads of his feet as nervous but hopeful energy came over him. Their reaction was the first positive sign he had gotten. The smallest for his glance between you and Derek unsurely. He let his shirt go and balled his hands into fists. I'm sorry, Derek. I'm sorry, Rose. Nicholas put everything he had into wheeling whatever problems he caused to be fixed into people not feeling bad anymore. The emotions displayed of regret moved someone in the room to speak.
I'm sorry.
Sorry too. Derek snorted a laugh at the unexpectedness of the interjection. What did you even do? I don't know. The middle child looked down at the puzzle in front of him again, but he was staring through the pieces as if they weren't there. He murmured just barely loud enough to hear from where you were standing. You and Rose had to watch me today too. Derek's hesitancy completely crumbled. Its usual familiar dynamics came back in full force. Oh, George, you don't have to apologize for that. I like to have some time by myself or with my friends, but I never want to stop having my little bros. Nicholas' massively wide eyes sparkled. For the first time since they were reunited, he carefully reached out to Derek and gripped his soak-wet jeans. Derek reached down to gently pat his brother's head as he did probably every day. Neither boy cared that this time the hand was damp. Instead, they both smiled at the other with unwavering affection. No matter what conditions happened, it was inevitable that it would end that way because they both loved their family equally and deeply. Another person took a turn to cut in as Mr. Sora spoke up with vigor. Derek Rose, let's race. What? Derek chuckled at your confusion and switched his head pat into a full-on hair ruffle. Nicholas giggled excitedly along with his brother. Dad is asking us to play a video game. An old kart race he likes. Yes, I will win. Oh, so they're a family of gamers. Derek's dad cheerfully tacked that on. It couldn't be forgotten clearly. George, could you be player 4? Miss Suarez was the only one who truly kept her distance during the reconciliation between Derek and Nicholas, but now she joined the rest of the family. When she was close enough to you and Derek to whisper, she pressed her hand to the corner of her mouth and winked conspiratorially. I'll give Nico an unplugged controller. Derek grinned at the point and shifted on to giving the longest strand of Nicholas' hair a huge tug. And he didn't accept the invite immediately, and he included you in the discussion. What do you think, Rose? It's up to you. He nodded at you and turned to answer, Father. All right, let's race. Derek's mom encouraged you and Derek with her words, and Nicholas with her hands, taking him by the shoulders. This time, she wouldn't be letting him get away from her.
Go on.
Get changed, we'll plug it in so it's ready when time you get back. Thanks, Mom. Derek's mood continued to be buoyed by the support of his parents, and he left to go get changed while walking as lightly as he could in his wet clothes. You didn't know where anything was, so you had to leave the prep work to Mrs. Suarez and George. The two of them got right into it, opening drawers and pulling out cords. Found something to do by keeping Nicholas company with Miss Suarez. He was on his best behavior and didn't whine for Derek even once. And as you promised, Suarez's dark purple GameCube was fully connected, the 4 controllers plugged in. By the time Derek strolled into the living room, a familiar shout filled the room. All was right in the world. Yep, Nico, I'm here. Mrs. Suarez was on the carpet with Nicholas in her lap. She already passed him the controller, and he was having a blast pressing the clicky Y button, despite the fact that he did nothing except make a little noise. George and Mr. Suarez took a seat on the couch. George tucked his hand closely against his father so that the two were only taking up one side. The other half of the couch was reserved for you and Derek. Derek dove into the spot next to George. He got settled in nicely against the plush back of the couch, folding his legs up across the cushion. Got in the final place and relaxed against the armrest. George passed one controller to Derek, which Derek gave to you, and then he handed over a second, which Derek kept. Suarez filled you in on the decision he and his second son had made.
What do you think?
You and I are on a team. You and Rose can play together. What do you think? Derek tilted his head your way. He lifted his shoulders and added on to his dad's briefing. It's a double racer. One drives and the other controls items. I love that game. Me too. It's me and you, and then the deal was sealed. Packs had been made. George perked up and shook Mr. Suarez's arm. Hey, Dad. We're Team Suarez. Yes, we are. Derek's fingers were on the buttons, and he was leaning over his crossed legs in anticipation for the game to begin. He replied unbothered. Cool for you guys. Team Smith is a force to be reckoned with. All 4 players making up the 2 teams chose their characters' cards and positions in the track set to start. Derek and Suarez were driving. You and George had items to launch duty. 3, 2, 1. The carts launched across the starting line. Both drivers get extra boost. Team Smith and Team Suarez were off down the colorful jungle road. There would be 3 laps before the race was over. Lap 1 was a frantic race for the stop spot. The carts were neck and neck to each other over every hill and around each curve, either getting ahead or falling behind. Attacks were constantly exchanged and buttons were pressed at rapid speed. This included Nicholas. Let's also watch the race. He tried to use control the way everyone else was, one of which part of the game he thought he was impacting. By lap 2, Team Smith had taken a strong lead. Almost nothing from the Suarez camp could reach your cart. Once he passed the line to start lap 3, Derek was cocky enough to bring out the smack talk. Oh my God, I thought you were gonna win, Dad. So Suarez's expression was perfectly content. More than that, it was serene. And it was with that calm face, Derek's father carefully reached across to George, and then in a blink of an eye, locked his large hand around the competitive tiny controller Derek. In the car you and Derek shared without control, you're off the dirt in the pit, and you had to wait for the game to fish you out and place you back on the road. Team Suarez rolled right past. See, I'm winning now. His dad is so funny. Derek's dad, boldly and apologetically, he grinned. with like a kid who just found out that you could get a hole in one in putt-putt golf if you just drop the ball in the hole. You're cheating now. Derek sputtered with the laughter made equal parts amusement and disbelief. He yanked his arm towards his chest. Fight for freedom, but Mrs. Suarez's grip was unmovable. Running interference, huh? From this, Miss Suarez mushed around over the situation and it began to unfold. Her husband stole a look at where she had been sitting. She was gone, leaving only Nicholas on the floor. Mrs. Suarez lifted one thick eyebrow and pressed the other lower. He could only puzzle over what it might mean until it all became clear by the world going dark for only him. Derek's mom had crawled over behind the couch, popped up from behind him, slipped her fingers under Suarez's glasses. He caught her completely off guard. His father stared from the shock of a surprise attack, and that wasn't committed by himself. Yeah, Mom. Derek had gotten his controller back. Mr. Suarez was stubborn in his hole, but his dad was just incapable of a driver. Yeah, Mom. An echo of Derek's cheers came from behind. All the excitement in the air had stirred a fire in Nicholas. He wasn't just playing with our off controller anymore. He crawled onto all fours at a rapid pace until he reached the couch and launched himself right at his dad's stomach. It was powerful that Mr. Suarez sprung forward and Mr. Suarez's hands were yanked off of him. Oof. But Derek's controller was finally freed. Mr. Suarez had to let go of both controllers to catch his squirming kid. Nicholas would not be contained. He climbed up over his dad's shoulder and wrapped his arms around Mrs. Suarez's face. In the sweet justice, the Team Suarez cart flew off the bridge into the abyss below. Yeah, Nicholas. George placed his own controller in his lap with a shake of his head and smirked. Team Suarez wasn't winning this race. Derek rolled his shoulders and poked his tongue out at the corner of his mouth in concentration. He was back in business. The Team Smith cart course corrected and raced towards the finish line in the final lap. The youngest Suarez hugged all four of his limbs around his dad, even tighter when the thrill of seeing Derek speed his car around the track. Yeah, items weren't needed now, but you were just as invested in watching your cart make this final last stretch. And Derek brought it home, crossing the finish line. We won. Derek threw his fist into the air, pumped them back down to his chest, and turned to you with the palm held out for you to smack. He clapped his hand. Their sound of your high five was a proper victory note. We won. Nicholas sent his arms up towards the sky, a perfect imitation of his eldest brother. Mr. Suarez used this opportunity to collect his son from his shoulder and place Nicholas into his lap. He pet his son's hair and he laughed restlessly but full of joy. Okay, I lost. Next race. This time Derek repeated the phrase, still racing on, but that was naturally followed by the original copycat. Nicholas clapped gleefully and snuggled up against his seat on his father's chest. Next race. George picked up his abandoned controller once more. His voice was quieter, but no less sincere. Yeah, next race. In all the commotion, you completely forgot that you could switch to the driver role to take over for Derek at any time. George could too for his dad, but you were glad it went the way it did. Team Smith got its win, and with the assistance of team pile drivers Nicholas and Mr. Suarez, and the game was just getting started. Next race. You couldn't help but join the pattern. Got a big smile from the family. Well, now that this is a real party, there's still pizza in the fridge. Who wants leftovers? Me? Suggestion of food riled Nicholas up even more. He clambered over his dad's shoulder for the second time, tugged on his beard, and accidentally knocked his glasses off. Suarez wheezed out and chuckled. Nicholas stared out from over the couch into the kitchen. He wanted that pizza but couldn't be the first to ask. I do. Me too. George Suarez chimed in with a request. Can I have some, Mom? I would like some pizza, my beloved wife, who never turned against me. She snickers with a glint in her eye. Of course, start the game and I'll heat it up. All four of them spoke in unison. Oh, thank you. Welcome. Players all resumed their positions and took up their tools, sadly sweaty game controllers. When the second race started, the grin on Derek's face was one of the most radiant you've seen the whole day. His dad, mom, and brothers too, really knew how to make Derek happy. It brought a smile to your face. From getting a window into Derek's life, and from what you knew from your own, Spending every day with the same people can take a lot of patience, but there were a lot of perks too. Your time at the Suarez household ended with family, food, and fun. There wasn't much more for you to ask for. That was so cute. Okay, guys, that was Responsible. That was part of Derek's DLC. So I thank you for watching and sticking along with me for this far. That was a very long video, so should be a decent one. But again, thank you for joining me on Mushy Monday, and please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch y'all next Mushy Monday. Bye.